Welcome into the PFF NFL podcast. Steve Palazzolo is back with Sam Monson.
Yeah, you're back. You've always been here. I'm back. I'm back. Me.
You're back.
Yeah.
We had Mike Renner in here on a Monday. I thought you were going to get Wally pipped. You know who Wally Pipp is?
Baseball guy of some kind, right?
Yeah. He was the guy who was the starting first baseman before Lou Gehrig. And, of course, Lou Gehrig, the Iron Horse, went on to play 2,130 consecutive games.
Right.
After replacing Wally Pipp.
Yeah.
You knew that.
Of course.
It's a thing. You almost were Wally Pipped. Instead, Mike Renner did one consecutive podcast, and you're back.
Right.
You recovered?
No, but you gotta get back in the chair. Otherwise, that can happen. You can lose your job due to injury.
Right. If you missed one more podcast, it was pretty much over.
This is it, right?
I'm glad you're back.
You got to get back on the field. Otherwise, someone's going to take your job, and you'll be the guy on the bench. You'll be Drew Bledsoe while Tom Brady takes your job.
There's another great one. We used to say you can't make the club in the tub.
Right. If Drew Bledsoe got back on the field earlier, Tom Brady may not have been a thing.
Well, let's be serious here. Brady would always be a thing.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he's even the best backup quarterback of all time, as we showed in our backup quarterback video, which is up on YouTube. All right, guys, let's get into Week 15. Week 15 action, Sam. It is great to have you back. You sound better than I thought you would this week. We've got our last Thursday night game of the year.
Yeah.
Kind of sad. A little bit.
Predictive time.
It's
predicting the future time.
It's the best Thursday night game of the year, though.
Yeah.
Chiefs-Chargers.
At least on paper, yeah. We ran through our tally, right, of predicting the future. We're somewhere around 500.
Yeah, because we didn't do it every week. We started week 3.
Right. So in terms of predicting things, so when you bear in mind the things we're predicting have been like the Nick Mullins carving up the Raiders.
Very specific.
Brock Osweiler's grade to within a decimal point. And what did I call last week? Derrick Henry going off and putting monster numbers out of nowhere.
You haven't had a chance to do the victory lap on the Derrick Henry thing.
Yeah.
Because, every Thursday night, you're texting me all Thursday night like, this is it. Derrick Henry's going off.
Yeah.
Do you want to brag, celebrate?
Well, no, you don't. You don't. It's uncouth, Steve. Everybody knows that I was right.
Everybody knows.
And that's all that matters.
You're really right,
you don't need to be smug about it. Otherwise, you look a little bit.
Smug guy tells us not to
anyway,
be smug.
But the point is, we went through last week after that game and kind of tallied up. Worked. You called Baker Mayfield. We did Andrew Luck. We swung and missed on a couple.
We have Christian McCaffrey.
Right.
Nick Mullins.
When you add it up over the season, we've basically been around or just over 500.
Yeah.
In terms of predicting the future.
Right.
Right. I mean, that's quite hard to do.
It's also tough to sustain. We got to put this caveat in there every single time. All right, let's get right into my prediction.
So this is our last one, right?
It's the last one. This is the last one we're going to do.
Last Thursday night football game of the season.
It's the last one we're going to do.
Steve's attempt at keeping us above 500 for predicting the future.
So much pressure here.
I don't think that gets, I don't think we make enough of that we've been predicting the future here.
Right.
So anyway.
We shouldn't be able to do this.
You guys listening to...
So you guys have already...
You've seen the Thursday night game. Steve is going to tell you what happened in the Thursday night game from the past.
Most of you have seen the game. I'm picking Kansas City to win. I don't think it's the same Chargers implosion. It's not the same Phillip Rivers implosion game that we've seen in the past against Kansas City. I don't think that their defense can stop the pass at that level like they have in the past. But they have Eric Berry coming back, and you weren't on the pod Monday, but we talked about Eric Berry maybe being the Bob Sanders, the 2006 Colts Bob Sanders for this Chiefs defense. He comes back, the defense is a little wishy-washy, but boom, one guy changes the whole thing. I think Eric Berry is changing the game for this Chiefs defense. I don't feel great about the prediction because we're going to get specific. He's going to come in. So Phillip Rivers isn't going to be terrible, but Eric Berry is going to be the guy here. Major story. He comes back. 6 stops.
6 stops. Okay.
Both against the run and in coverage. I think that's the big one. But he's
6 plus. Give yourself a little wiggle room here.
I should have said 4 plus. That's a monster number.
Right.
6 stops. Eric Berry's making plays all over the place. Maybe he has a game-clinching interception on a tip or something like that. But Eric Berry with a huge game, immediately we feel the impact of Eric Berry on the Chiefs defense, and they win they've won a close, hard-fought game against the Los Angeles Chargers.
Did he play well enough to keep Hunter Henry off the stat sheet?
This is a no-brainer. I will guarantee you right now, PFF guarantee Hunter Henry off the stat sheet in this game.
Okay.
Very much thanks to Eric Berry.
Anyone that doesn't know what that's in reference to should probably search Twitter for Hunter Henry. He's trending right now.
Keep an eye on Hunter Henry and Derek Johnson.
Yeah.
Just keep an eye.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Big matchup.
Just keep an eye on that. I hope you guys saw that. And Spencer Ware. I don't think Spencer Ware makes as big of an impact as other people think.
The official Chargers Twitter account has also informed us that LaDainian Tomlinson, Dan Fouts, and Lance Allworth are all out for the game.
So that, prepare accordingly for fantasy. So that's what you guys saw. You guys saw Eric Berry's return in style. Another great story. All right. We had enough Thursday.
So hopefully that'll keep us above 500.
I hope we're good.
We'll look like geniuses.
I hope we're retweeting this again, as it happens. All right, let's get into the Week 15 action. It was enough banter, Sam. Wow. We got to get right to it. Right to it. The big games of the week. Dallas Cowboys at the Indianapolis Colts. Who thought this would be a huge game? But it is an interesting one with Dallas riding their defense, riding Dak Prescott. I joked the other day, Dak Prescott, one of the more unimpressive 455-yard outings you're going to see. Missing a bunch of throws, but they still had Amari Cooper going off, and you got the Indianapolis Colts who continue to improve other than that one shutout against the Jaguars.
So the theme to this week might be mocking ridiculous comments by very well-paid and famous people on Twitter. Because
what's this one now?
Skip Bayless came out and tweeted about how Dak Prescott is basically better than Andrew Luck in every way, shape, or form. And every time one of these tweets, so I don't follow him, right, for obvious reasons, but every now, his things will appear in my timeline because other people will retweet them for whatever reason, and you get to see them. But every time one of these tweets comes out, I check the date in case it was tweeted during some weird Thursday night game back in 2016 where that particular comment would be less staggeringly and abrasively, offensively stupid, right?
Yeah.
And it never is. It's always no, this is actually what he thinks right now. So Skip thinks that Andrew Luck is a much worse player than Dak Prescott. Skip is wrong. Very, very wrong. So wrong, in fact, that you kind of wonder how he functions daily without just falling over and,
You're derailing the podcast
passing
now
out.
by
Sorry.
referencing that.
Okay. But that was the, we had the one with the Hunter Henry versus Derek Johnson thing, and here's another one: Skip Bayless, Dak Prescott versus Andrew Luck. If you're looking at this game as a quarterback matchup, Andrew Luck is the far superior quarterback.
However, here's the thing: Andrew Luck going up against a Cowboys defense that has made life really difficult for opposing quarterbacks for the most part over the last few weeks. And if there is a matchup for Dak that is favorable, it is the zone. It's zone-heavy teams that aren't going to maybe put a ton of pressure. And this feels like one of those games where Dak will, he's missed a ton of throws the last couple weeks too, but he could put up one of those high completion percentage, really efficient games against this Colts defense. So I think when we talk matchups, is Andrew Luck better than Dak Prescott? Yes. And it is by a wide margin right now. Right. PFF grade show it. Everything else shows it. But this could be a matchup that, things are a little bit closer to even, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a quarterback-only thing, Steve, much as you would like it to be every single week.
It's not.
There's the rest of the team involved as well. And you're right, this Dallas defense in particular has been really fantastic of late. They're the thing that's propelling this team, right? Everyone wants to focus on Amari Cooper and the impact he's made, and that has been significant. He is a dramatically better player when he's being targeted relatively heavily, the way he wasn't in Oakland. And he's having a big impact. But their defense has been fantastic. That linebacker core, Leighton Vander Esch, Jalen Smith, the defensive front, those guys are getting significant pressure. DeMarcus Lawrence, not quite as good as he was a year ago, but way better than a sort of last year was a fluke. He's definitely backing that up with authority and earning himself a monster contract this offseason, whether it's for Dallas or somebody else. That defense is formidable in a way that the Colts isn't.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And again, the Colts have some playmakers. Love what Darius Leonard has done all year and everything. Yeah. And they've been impressive. I'm just saying the way that they're matched up against Dak, this could help him play a little bit better. Dak, the last couple weeks, despite all the passing yards and all that stuff, we've seen him against the Saints, where they only scored 13 points, by the way. He had an open deep ball this would have sealed the deal. Yeah. They would have gone from 13 to 20, closed the door, and he overthrows the deep pass. Last week, he had the same opportunity when I think they were up 7 against the Eagles, overthrows the deep pass. And his 2 interceptions against the Eagles, I know they came early in the game and he was much better in the fourth quarter, but 2 just bad interceptions, 1 red zone, a couple overthrows. So Dak's had some ugly ones in there, but impressed with how he's bounced back, and he made some nice throws down the stretch to Amari Cooper. Again, I just think the short passing game should be a little bit better for Dallas in this one.
Yeah, Dak Prescott is a weird quarterback in terms of he fluctuates wildly when it comes to accuracy. So overall, he's a vaguely accurate quarterback. He's middle of the pack to above average in terms of adjusted completion percentage and all that kind of thing. But every now and again, it's just like it's like a glitch, right? He just twitches and he's way off, and it usually happens on those critical plays deep down the field. Yeah. You kind of need to hit. And he doesn't all too often.
But he's made some spectacular plays with his legs and some nice throws down the field. So, yeah, so just hit and miss, and still hasn't played to that rookie year level that he had where he was extremely well protected. But, yeah, this Cowboys defense going up against Andrew Luck is going to be a really good matchup. The Cowboys are playing with such great speed at linebacker. We've talked about him every week on here. Love the way they're playing right now. So, and the last time Luck played against a pretty good defense was Jacksonville. Now, granted, that was on the road. This one's at home, but they did get shut out 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. We both went Colts in this one.
Yeah.
I was just looking, so I had a bad week in the picks last week. Maybe this was the precursor to my illness. I was thrown off my game, Steve. That suffered a little bit in the overall pick competition. But we differ on 2 games this week, and that's the difference between you and I and the pick so far. So you could, if they both break your way.
Oh, I'm 2 behind you?
You could tie me this week.
I can't wait. Can't wait to see how it all unfolds. It's getting to that point where we need to start looking at other people's picks
I'm now. I think
all that stuff.
I'm 2 or 3 behind Nathan. I need to start picking off those games. I need them to break my way. Otherwise, he's gonna run away with it.
Well, best of luck.
Thank you.
I do think it's another little bit of a test for the Indy O-line as well.
Yeah,
it's an O-line that we said they're improved, but have they improved against poor teams? Going up against DeMarcus Lawrence and company up front, Dallas. That's the other really good test here, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And we kind of saw last week that, the line has been better, but it's not great. They are still, when they run up against top-level competition, the Houston Texans, still have a really good defensive front. They struggle badly. This idea of Mark Lewinsky, that's going to come back to haunt you at some point. And then Costanzo has kind of struggled the past couple of weeks in terms of pass protecting. He's had 2 of his worst games for a long time at left tackle.
Right.
Admittedly against top-level competition. Houston, Jacksonville, Yannick Ngakoue, J.J. Watt, Jadeveon Clowney. Those are tough people to be trying to block, but he stunk. Stunk.
All right. So we're all taking Indy. We didn't give you good reasons for it. I think ultimately Andrew Luck's going to make enough plays.
Right, he's the better quarterback.
And the Colts defense is much improved. The matchups are going to, I think it's going to be one of the games of the week. It's going to be a good one.
They're at home, Steve.
We just defer to the home team. Good analysis, Sam. Thanks. Let's get to the other big matchup. Pittsburgh Steelers hosting the New England Patriots. So much to unpack in this one because over the last few years, obviously, maybe the 2 top teams in the AFC year in, year out. But the Patriots have the Steelers' number since about 2011, I think it was the last time that they lost. And, of course, Tom Brady absolutely tears apart the Pittsburgh defense, and they've tried different things against him. I think that's the biggest thing when you're looking at this matchup. The Steelers generally like to blitz a lot. We've seen Brady pick apart the blitz. They tried to go 3-man rush in the AFC Championship a couple years ago. That was too easy for the Patriots as well. Last year, they tried to play man coverage. They hate playing man coverage. They did it anyway. They slowed the Patriots down until the fourth quarter, and they couldn't cover Gronk.
Yeah.
And Brady had his highest graded game of the year. So what did the Steelers do this time?
Well, that's the most fascinating thing about this matchup is you don't often see 2 teams playing each other, and one of them has literally no idea what they should be doing to try and stop the other one, right? Yeah. Whether they can achieve it or not is a different matter. You see some teams just can't beat the other team because of a matchup that doesn't work or because of a particular schematic problem. But the Steelers don't know how to stop Tom Brady and the Patriots offense. They've tried everything. They keep cycling through things that they think might work, whether it's something they do well or not. Because and the man coverage thing, I think, was the closest they've come to actually achieving it. It was the right thing to do. There was just an Achilles heel in the system, which is that Sean Davis was one-on-one with Rob Gronkowski, and that was a problem.
And that might not be so. That was kind of like the way you were going to beat New England is to play man coverage. But that was more last year than this year. This year, New England with Josh Gordon, Julian Edelman, they're much more equipped to handle man coverage. So it's not like there's this perfect blueprint against New England.
No.
Last year they had to try it. I mean, Miami had success with it, and other teams had a little bit of success with it. The Steelers they're one of the most zone heavy teams in the NFL. And they tried to go out of their comfort zone.
Right. And that was last year. This year they've become a lot more balanced in terms of man zone coverage. But there's a lot less of an obvious blueprint to defeating the Patriots.
Right.
So now you're back to this, what the hell do they do? Right? And that's the single most fascinating thing in this game is just identifying exactly what defensive game plan the Steelers come out with, because they've tried everything against this team to try and beat their nemesis essentially and get further into the playoffs and actually try and win another Super Bowl. And they always have faith that their offense can score, but they can't win the shootout yet because the Patriots will typically find a way of slowing them down, and they just haven't been able to do it the other way.
Since 2015, Tom Brady's grade when facing the Steelers, 95.4. They played in the regular season. They've played 4 times. Regular season 2015, twice in 2016, late last year. So I just cut it as a 4-game sample, but 95.4 PFF grade, completing about 70% of his passes, plus another 10 drops. So only 1 turnover-worthy play. That was last year, 11 big-time throws. So Brady has definitely carved them up. We saw the Steelers a couple weeks ago getting torn up by Keenan Allen against linebackers.
Yeah.
And if they play that same type of coverage, that's Julian Edelman's going to have 15 catches, right?
Yeah.
James White. Where the Steelers are a little bit better this year, Joe Hayden on the outside and Mike Hilton, they could do some pretty good stuff as far as matching up with the Patriots. This feels like one of those games where it gets back to a middle of the field game for the Patriots passing attack against the Steelers linebackers, who statistically are some of the worst in the NFL passer rating against, touchdowns against, yards per attempt. So I think it's a middle of the field game for New England passing offense.
Yeah, the Steelers defense is interesting because they consistently play better than you think they should looking at their talent level, but only against bad to below average teams.
Well, look at the breakdown here. Since 2015, you want to see these are the QB grades, right?
Got?
So you got Brady at 95. You have Derek Carr at 88. Phillip Rivers at 78. Those are all good grades. Those are pretty good quarterbacks. The bottom end of the list, this is quarterbacks with at least 50 attempts against the Steelers. Austin Davis with a 34 grade. Tyrod with a 48 grade. A.J. McCarron, 52. Deshaun Kaiser, 56. Flacco, 58. Fitzpatrick, 61. Bortles, 62. Dalton, 65. So they do pretty well against the bad quarterbacks.
Right.
And this would happen for a lot of teams. But remember the Chiefs a couple years ago? We always said the Chiefs have had good games against Brady. They had good games against Peyton and better quarterbacks.
So this defense generally overachieves against poor opposition and then gets exposed when they come up against really good opposition.
Yes.
And I think it's almost like they underachieve against the best and overachieve against the worst, and it kind of evens out to somewhere in the middle. But it means that when they go up against a team like the Chargers, they just get carved to pieces.
Right.
And typically when they run up against the Patriots, they get really badly exposed. And that's their biggest problem. You want an interesting stat?
Yes,
for
I do.
For the Steelers defense? Bud Dupree, a player we don't exactly love, hasn't been grading particularly well, has 38 total pressures this season.
Yep.
10 of which were unblocked.
Wow.
So more than a quarter.
And he's rushed 403 times.
Yes. More than a quarter of Bud Dupree's total pressure this season has come unblocked.
Yeah.
That's a ridiculous level.
It's not great.
No.
Somewhat along those lines, but TJ Watt, it's just the way the Steelers play. TJ Watt's dropped into coverage. He's an edge rusher. He's dropped into coverage 107 times.
Yeah.
And he's got 10 sacks. So he's not a great coverage player. Again, from a matchup standpoint, this is the type of stuff that New England generally likes to go against. Other side of the ball, some Big Ben numbers that I tweeted out. He's got the 5th highest percentage of uncatchable passes beyond the sticks. And the rest of the guys that he's with in the bottom 5, Mitch Trubisky, it's all the rookies. Josh Allen, Sam Darnold, Josh Rosen, and then Big Ben. And this goes back to what we've been saying all season. He's got the big-time throws. He's number 5 in that this year. He's still making special plays, but he is missing way more throws than he ever has.
Right, and so many of them have been targeting Antonio Brown. Right. So
That's
Antonio Brown,
his
grade is the worst of his career, I think, at this point. And it's not because he's worse. Like Antonio Brown didn't become worse in the last 12 months. It's because, I mean, he's a relatively quarterback-dependent receiver, right? He's not this physically imposing monster who can get big plays regardless of who the quarterback is. We've seen throughout his career, it's usually when Ben Roethlisberger goes down hurt and Landry Jones comes in, or,
that's
Josh
more Landry
Dobbs.
Jones' fault, though.
But that's what I'm saying, right? This is the point I'm making, is that the quarterback comes in, it's the backup, and he's terrible, and suddenly Antonio Brown's production dries off. It dries away. It disappears. He had that run of 5 catches and 50 yards every single game of his career, and then that was broken, I think, when Landry Jones came in.
Yep.
It's like you literally can't stop this guy from getting production except when the quarterback is terrible. Now this season, it's kind of been the same story, except the terrible quarterback play has been Ben Roethlisberger. Like in the past, it's always been when he goes down, the guy coming in off the bench is terrible,
right,
and he can't get Antonio Brown the ball. This time it's been Roethlisberger who can't get him the ball. He's just been missing him way too much. Now you're still getting a lot of incredible plays from Ben Roethlisberger, but for whatever weird reason, they've almost all gone to Juju Smith-Schuster. He hasn't been making the plays to Antonio Brown, which is where they normally go.
That's a good point.
And so many of the misses have gone to Antonio Brown. Like Antonio Brown's catch percentage at the moment is 62. Michael Thomas is catching almost 90% of his passes.
It's really low for
Antonio Brown is at 62.
And I haven't rechecked the numbers, but highest percentage of just uncatchable passes thrown that way, it's been Antonio Brown pretty much.
It's 10% lower than Juju's.
Yep. New England, I've told Patriots fans, hey, they've got our number 2 coverage grade overall. And I think every team in the NFL, except maybe Bears fans, just hates their pass coverage this year. Our defense is terrible. But the Patriots overall have covered extremely well. But last week was a disaster even before the Miami Miracle. 42.1 coverage grade last week against Miami, by far their lowest of the season. But they were coming off 2 of their best against the Jets and Vikings. This is an important matchup. Stephon Gilmore's our number 2 graded corner. Him going up against Juju and Antonio Brown's going to be a big one.
Did you spend an extended period on the podcast talking about the Miami Miracle on Monday?
No, we saved all of the. We don't have time for an extended period. But we saved all the rugby discussion for you. You going to do a video on this again? That thing went big time on all the rugby blogs.
It went big time. This is a beautiful example of simple rugby principles, and the addition of Gronk as a free safety will give you a touchdown.
That's all you have to do. Gronk is no Jimmy Sexton.
You execute some simple Johnny Sexton.
Johnny Sexton.
You execute some simple rugby principles.
Johnny Sexton.
And you put Rob Gronkowski a free safety, and you'll get a try. Touchdown.
John Sexton was a pitcher on my college team.
Yeah?
He was a senior my freshman year.
Probably not the same guy.
Football coach.
Right.
Well, he could be.
It could be.
We didn't call him Johnny, though, so it's probably it was John Sexton.
Yeah.
John, if you're listening, shout out to you. Or Johnny, if you're listening. Possible. So we're all taking New England except Neil and Gordon, both taking Pittsburgh.
Wow.
Is this the year that Pittsburgh, and they're at home,
yeah,
help a little bit. Let me just sum it up real quick.
Plus, they fixed the rule that screwed them last time.
That's true. That would have been a catch. Pittsburgh, New England won, but Pittsburgh played, I think, a perfect game last year. They controlled the clock, kept it out of New England's hands.
Other than the Sean Davis-Gronk thing.
Other than that. But the game flow was in their favor.
Yeah.
They kept the ball away from Brady for the most part, but then they gave the ball back to the Patriots in the fourth quarter and couldn't stop them. Brady and Gronk were both incredible. Right. They even got a turnover. I mean, there was a lot of good in last year's match.
That's why I'm saying it was the right call. There was a problem, right? There was an Achilles heel in that defensive scheme. And to be honest, they're probably better equipped to do it this year. Now, it might not matter because, like we said, it's not the same silver bullet that it was a year ago against the Patriots. But
I'm looking forward to seeing it. It's going to be a good cat and mouse game again. Patriots and the Steelers. Let's get to some of the other games. We've got 2 Saturday games to get to, Sam.
Saturday games.
It's December. We're getting into some Saturday action. The Houston Texans at the New York Jets. Last week, you and I talked about, maybe the Texans aren't as good as we thought. They did lose to the Indianapolis Colts. Texans fans, of course, weren't happy for us disrespecting them, but we do expect them to bounce back here at New York.
Yeah. The Jets
however, we have to discuss the ginger theory.
Yes. So
last year, I forget which podcast listener did a great job.
We're putting up the Venn. Why don't we have the Venn diagram on the TV?
We got to get the Venn diagram on the YouTube breakdown here.
Yeah.
Long story short, podcast listener a couple years ago said, there's only so much ginger quarterback talents to go around in the NFL. So you've got last year, Carson Wentz was the guy.
And it gets hoarded by one guy.
Yes. So like 2015, Carson Palmer.
Had all the ginger talent, had an MVP caliber season.
He did. Last year, it was all Carson Wentz. And the Venn diagram shows Carson Wentz has all of it, except, a little smidge for Andy Dalton and a little smidge for Carson Palmer last year.
Yeah.
Because Dalton and Palmer struggled. This year, it almost perfectly went. Carson Wentz is injured, so Andy Dalton has a good first couple of weeks.
Right.
Then Wentz comes back, steals back the ginger power. Now
they're both,
and Palmer's retired.
Right.
Now
they're both down.
And Darnold had some good ginger talent too, only when Carson Wentz was injured this year.
So now Wentz is down.
Yes.
Injured is back.
Dalton's
down. Driscoll's starting, which means the only ginger left in the NFL at quarterback
Sam Darnold.
Is Sam Darnold, which means the final few weeks of the season is going to be Sam Darnold MVP.
Going off. Sam Darnold is going to go crazy down the stretch here. He's going to beat the Texans. He's going to beat the Patriots.
Yes.
Sam Darnold for the last 3 weeks. Keep an eye on it. If you guys are in your fantasy playoffs, just keep an eye on Sam Darnold.
Right.
Starting this week.
So we have this beautifully illustrated by a Venn diagram with the circle of ginger talent and how it gets swung around and allocated to the specific ginger.
Last year's breakdown was good. So much Wentz and then, little Dalton, little Palmer. But now that everybody's hurt.
So yes, it's all Darnold. He's going to have the entire circle of the ginger talent.
We work really hard to give good analysis, and then we just ruin it by listening to our listeners and the ginger talent. But
don't say this is the finest thing we've ever done. Are you getting Eric and George to work this into their calculations?
I told them.
Right, because this is important stuff.
I sent the diagram.
The teams need to know this. There's no point in giving them, all this advanced war stuff if it doesn't have the ginger stuff baked into it. I mean, then you're going to take a guy who has no shot because all the ginger talent's over there.
It's true.
I mean,
the other thing to watch in this game, perhaps, is the Texans' defensive line going up against the Jets' offensive line.
Okay.
What do you think?
Yeah.
Does it even matter?
I mean, it matters. Like, as much as he's predestined to have a great game and a great few games.
The Jets are still number 22 in pass blocking grade for PFF.
Sam Darnold has one of the roughest situations of any quarterback in the NFL. Not as rough as Josh Rosen's or arguably Josh Allen's. In fact, it's a pretty stinking year for the rookies to be thrown in at the deep end. Baker's in a reasonable situation, albeit some questionable tackle play. Lamar Jackson's in got a pretty good gig, I guess, in Baltimore.
We were talking about the other day. Darnold, Allen, and Rosen, bottom three offensive
but the other three are
situations.
Screwed.
Yeah, bottom three offensive situations in the NFL. And it showed in their performances this year. We're all taking Houston in this one, which we haven't lived up. We haven't really bought into the theory enough because
we didn't. I think we probably didn't think about it until after we'd done the picks.
That's true, actually. So the picks came before we really thought about it.
Before we remembered our own ginger theory.
Yep. Browns at the Broncos. That's the Saturday night game. Denver Broncos disappointing effort last week against San Francisco. They could not cover George Kittle. Could not cover Kittle anywhere around the field.
For the first half.
In the first half. Second half was fine. I hate deferring to the home and away thing, but Denver,
they are the completely different team.
They have they're so much better at home.
Right.
And then you've got Baker Mayfield and the Browns on the other side. Baker coming off another really good game. Since they have Freddie Kitchens, that offense is rolling.
This is one of those games where, every week there's a couple of games that you're on the fence about, could go either way. This is one of those.
This is up there.
As much as I think, like Denver, a completely different team at home than they are on the road, so they would be the favorites. It's at home. Still, the Browns are kind of legit with Baker Mayfield at quarterback. Now, obviously, he's capable of having those bad games as well. We saw that against the Texans, throwing some ugly interceptions, but he's really good. And did you watch? Have you finally got your ESPN Plus working? Have you been able to see these Peyton Manning detail episodes? I haven't sat down and watched it.
I do have my ESPN Plus though.
So he had one on Baker Mayfield, and I don't think it was in this, but in one of the episodes he was talking about the importance of play fakes. He's all of his stuff is young quarterbacks. This is really important. Some minor esoteric detail that only Peyton Manning cares about, and everyone else just plays.
It's just for young quarterbacks.
Yeah, he spends 2 minutes talking about this thing that you need to be really good at in order to be a good quarterback, and you probably don't.
Yeah.
But Baker Mayfield's play fakes are obscenely good.
They're really good.
Like he had the touchdown he got this week, the kind of trick play where they fake the pitch, that dive pitch thing. They faked the pitch, handed it back to a guy working across the formation. Like if you if you don't know what's happening, you have to watch that a couple of times to even see where the ball went.
Does it really matter, though? Because
yes,
linebackers are key in offensive linemen. Are
sometimes
they really watching?
Not always, though. It depends on the system and what you're doing.
I mean, it doesn't hurt to be good at it.
Right. I mean, it makes a big difference a lot of time. And as much as linebackers in a lot of systems are keying on offensive linemen, defensive backs aren't.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of players that are going to get fooled out by a really good play fake, particularly when it's a play fake that determines run pass, not simply where the ball is going. So, there are play fakes within the run game to disguise which guy is getting the ball. Now, those won't necessarily matter for linebackers who are keying on offensive linemen and all that kind of stuff because the blocking scheme is the same. But there are also play fakes that obviously are, play action. They're determining whether it's run pass. Right. And there are guys in the secondary that are definitely going to get screwed up by those. So, yeah, but I mean, he's executed some ridiculously effective play fakes, which is just another thing that it turns out he's really good at. For a guy who turns out is really good at a lot of things.
He is. Number 10 quarterback right now, Baker Mayfield in our grading. Denzel Ward was just ruled out. This is breaking. On Thursday afternoon, Adam Schefter ruled out due to concussions. Emmanuel Sanders is out for the season for Denver, so they're trying to still find their way replacing Emmanuel Sanders and getting some more Cortland Sutton involved there.
So this, what was it, week 11? We were saying, and the Browns are still in the hunt for the playoffs. They're technically still alive.
Oh, the AFC is just a wide open mess.
The chances of them actually doing anything are minuscule. I can't remember what our specific PFF percentage chance of them making the playoffs is, but it's very small.
Yeah.
But we are now entering, week 15?
Yes.
And the Browns are still alive.
Still relevant.
For the playoff picture.
Still relevant.
When I would like to know when the last time that was true is, that week 15 the Browns were still alive in the playoff hunt.
2014, was it? When Hoyer was there? Maybe.
I mean, this team has gone from a disaster to an actual relevant. They've got a shot at a 500 record.
Yeah. Denver, Philip Lindsay, and then Devontae Booker in a much smaller sample size. Highest yards per attempt in the NFL among running backs. They're getting incredible yards before contact. Run blocking has been very good. Cleveland, number 30 run defense grade in our PFF grading. I think as much as we don't talk about the run game, if it's really lopsided, it can help, and that's how Denver, these big runs that Philip Lindsay's been able to pull off. I think that could be a factor in this
And
one.
Royce Freeman is grading extremely well as well.
Yeah.
So he's got 19 broken tackles and 102 carries, which is way more than Philip Lindsay. They've got this actually really dynamic group of running backs because if your run blocking is really good and you're actually opening significant holes, there's a pretty good argument to say that what you want at that point is simply the fastest human being you can carrying the ball, a guy that can get through that hole.
Saquon.
And just
give me Saquon.
Right, just somebody that has elite speed. It's like Jamal Charles always had this incredibly high yards before carry figure, and it wasn't necessarily because the blocking was amazing. It was because when the blocking was good, he had the speed to fire through a hole and be 15 yards deep before anybody could get near him.
Right.
Now, Philip Lindsay's having the same kind of thing happen to him, but then you have the other end of the scale, which is Royce Freeman, who, if the blocking isn't as good, can still break tackles, make guys miss, fall forward, gain a significant amount of yards after contact, and make plays that way. So you've got the best of both worlds, really, and both those guys having an impact.
So there you go. We're you and I are taking Denver.
Yeah, they're at home, Steve. They're a different team at home.
Even Neil's taking Denver.
Wow. Neil going against Baker is
crazy.
Yeah, that doesn't happen often.
All right, Tampa Bay Bucks. We're going rapid fire now.
Sure.
Through most of the rest of this.
Let's see what happens.
We'll see certain games. Tampa Bay Bucks at the Baltimore Ravens. Lamar Jackson, his first loss as a starting NFL quarterback last week.
The starter.
He's the starter.
Officially.
Is Joe Flacco an elite backup? Lamar Jackson, let's just sum it up. Exactly what we had said to this point, right? Good in the design running game and inconsistent as a passer.
Right, and I'm of the opinion that naming him the starter is the right move, right?
Yeah, of course.
Not because I don't actually think he's a better quarterback than Joe Flacco right now, but he is a far harder quarterback to defend against, which ultimately is kind of the point, right?
It's a good
Doesn't matter if a guy is objectively better than you, snap for snap.
Right.
But if he causes you more problems on defense, you don't want to face that guy.
Lamar's running the the Tebow type of offense. When Tebow was there in 2010 through 12 or whatever that little stretch was, where they were winning a ton of games by shortening the game. He wasn't completing a ton of passes. He wasn't turning the ball over. And they were doing just enough on in the running. How many runs has Lamar made? He's taken a lot of runs. He's doing a good job of actually not taking hits. A lot of runs that just aren't there, and he's running out of bounds and taking the 2 yards. And I tweeted it out the other day because people are like, "Hey, Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen they're doing the same exact thing." And
they're not at all.
Rushing yards wise, they are. But the real breakdown is just like in college. Almost all of Lamar's rushing yards are through the designed running game. Josh Allen's are coming from scrambles. Lamar Jackson, when he drops back to pass, is looking to pass. He rarely takes off. He took off way more in the preseason than I expected.
Right. And there's something, so it's like all things with football. That isn't a black and white stat that points to one thing, right? Now, there's a part of that is made up of the fact that Buffalo's pass protection is bad and Baltimore's is less bad.
Well, that's what everybody was saying in my comments,
so there's... That's a factor. It's definitely a part of it. There's a percentage of that number that is down to the fact that Buffalo's pass protection is not good.
It's QB tendency.
It's a percentage of it. It's not a high percentage, though. A much bigger part of that is the fact that, even that number itself, that percentage is probably offset by the fact that Josh Allen holds the ball longer than anybody else in the game, right? So what you lose in the pass protection not being great, you gain back in the fact that most of it is Josh Allen's fault for holding the ball anyway.
Yeah.
Right? But by far the biggest part of that is a tendency thing. That is, Josh Allen is really the one read and run guy, which is what everybody thinks Lamar Jackson is. Yeah. When Lamar Jackson is told to drop back and pass, he's dropping back and he's working through his progression. He's passing. He is very rarely taken off and running from that situation. When he runs, it's because somebody told him to run the ball. It's not because he's one read and run, which is what everybody thinks a spectacularly athletic quarterback is and what they usually are.
And the same issue with Lamar Jackson, that game-tying touchdown that he had against the Chiefs, it's in the red zone, surveying the field, makes a really nice throw. They tie the game up. So there are enough throws like that where Lamar looks really good, but then you see them in this, they're down again, must-pass situation, little slant flat, and he throws this little wobbler. It's about knee-high. So that's the inconsistency as a passer. That is an issue for Lamar Jackson.
And that's the big problem with this style of offense, right? It's that you are really well equipped over the course of a game to do this because it's so hard to defend. But situationally, you may have problems.
Yeah.
So when you find yourself down in an obvious must-pass situation, can you go from being a 66% run team to an every down passing team, knowing that that's your quarterback's weakness?
No, it's a big question.
That's a problem.
That's the issue. So the thing that the Ravens can do is shorten the game and all that fun stuff, and they're doing that pretty well so far. They have run up against some pretty bad run defenses, too, while they're doing this.
That'll help.
So that certainly does help as well. We're all taking Baltimore, though. But this feels like one of those games where Jameis just pulls one out, right? Jameis pulls one out with some high-end play.
You think every game is a game that Jameis Winston is going to
pull. He's going to have some bad ones in there, too. But
right, but if you go into a game, every single game
any game
is the Jameis game.
Any game could be the game. Arizona Cardinals at the Atlanta Falcons. Matt Ryan's dome splits got even worse last week. The dome outdoor. So I haven't updated it, but it was a 61 grade before we went into Green Bay. Had a poor game. Zach was showing me the pick six again on the end zone cam the other day. He goes, just look at this ball come out of his hand, wobbly and bad. He really is throwing the ball poorly outdoors. This year.
I mean,
that's a concern.
It is. I mean, this was
not this week.
Remember, right at the start of the season,
in Philadelphia.
Like, what has happened to his arm?
Yep.
Like his arm was fine at the end of last season. What happened to it?
Yeah, it's not great.
It's like the Peyton Manning thing where he came back at the start of the season. It's like, oh, wow, you can't throw. Yep. But at least he had like a career-threatening neck injury to explain it.
Yeah, it was cold and all that fun stuff. But Matt Ryan, a little concerning outdoors, but they're in a dome. Expect him to get back on track against this Cardinals team.
We're
all taking Atlanta in this one.
Yeah.
That's quick hitting. So.
Well done, yeah.
Green Bay Packers at the Chicago Bears. This will be a fun matchup. The Bears are rolling defensively. Great game last week against the Rams. We've seen them against the Minnesota offense. The Bears pretty comfortably our highest graded defense this year.
Yeah. You want to? So you've been that intro there was very positive for Chicago fans, but that's not the tack we've taken with them so far this season. So can I bring them back down to earth?
I picked Green Bay, so don't worry about it.
Okay, perfect.
I'm the only one who picked Green Bay.
You want to know what Chicago's Super Bowl winning percentage is this season right now?
Yes.
3%.
Ooh.
3%.
There you go, Bears fans. Make this into a video.
Now, here's the thing, right?
Bears have a 3% chance to win the Super Bowl. We're going to get 8,000 thumbs downs, but I don't care.
Well, let's talk it out, right? Because I asked the question of Eric and George, our analytics guys. I was like, what are the Bears' chances of winning the Super Bowl right now?
Can I explain why? I'll explain why before you even.
You want to explain why?
Yes.
Okay, you explain why. Fine.
Because they're not getting a bye.
And why is that important?
Because they have one extra game to potentially lose. So when you're putting these odds together, the 4 teams that are getting a bye are all going to be over 10%. So what's like New Orleans is up at 25, and the Rams might be at 10 to 15.
30.
They're 30. So whatever. They're all above 10, right?
Well, yeah.
Every single team that's in the wild card round has a whole extra game to potentially lose. So immediately they're in like the 1 to 5% range.
You know what the other thing is?
What?
Trubisky.
Oh, that too. Of course.
So.
But he had a shoulder injury. He's got a shoulder injury. That's why he was bad the other day.
Yeah. So, because when I asked the question and they came back and they're like 3%, I was like, wow, that's really low for a team that's going to win their division. They're going to have a good record. They have arguably the best 15th ranked defense
all I'm saying is
in the league.
If you could somehow take that same exact Chicago team and give them a bye, it becomes 10 to 15% like some of those other teams.
So Eric started explaining it out when I asked him, right? And when you hear it explained out, it actually makes a lot of sense.
All right, give me your explanation.
They're going to have to play at least 3 games to make the Super Bowl, right? And if you assume they're going to be a 50-50 proposition in those 3 games, that immediately becomes a 12.5% proposition.
You're just starting at 12.
Just a winning 3 games, if you're 50-50, is going to be 12.5%, right? That's just to get to the Super Bowl, let alone winning the Super Bowl. Let's say that's another 50-50 proposition. Again, you're down to like 6. So just like you said, by not having the bye, you're down in single digits immediately, right? Now, you have to factor in, A, you're going to be traveling for a couple of those games probably. Mm-hmm. B, in every single one of those games, you're going to be the inferior quarterback because Drew Brees, because every quarterback they're going to have to run into in the playoffs.
Jared Goff, Kirk Cousins.
Is going to be better likely than
Russell Wilson.
Trubisky, right? Who are we talking about? Russell Wilson, Jared Goff, who's coming out of the
Drew
Brees.
Why are we doing
the
this
Bears?
off the top of our heads?
Well, that's the
Dak.
4. That's the 4. That's the 4
Dak,
division
Cousins,
winners,
and
right?
Wilson.
Then Dak and Cousins are the other 2 potential, right? So let's say one of those you get through the wild card, Dak or Cousins. You may be better in that one, or a 50-50 proposition. Whatever. Let's be kind. Let's say they're the better quarterback in that one. Every game from that point on, you're going to be the worst quarterback because you're going to be going against the other 3 winners who are all better.
Don't forget the Bears have already beaten Kirk Cousins and Russell Wilson.
Then you get into the Super Bowl where you're going to get
Goff.
waxed by Patrick Mahomes or Phillip Rivers or Tom Brady or Ben Roethlisberger. There's no chance you're the better quarterback there as well. So you're starting
the Bears
off.
have a better defense.
Yeah, but you have the worst quarterback, which is a more important part of winning games.
Of course it is.
So you're immediately in the single digits. That's assuming everything's equal, but yet they're not because you're going to have to go on the road and face better quarterbacks. So the Bears have a 3% chance of winning the Super Bowl, even if you're really good and rolling right now. Unlucky.
Ouch. Trubisky's down in the 20s in passer rating now, so he's coming back down to earth. Still over 90, though. Bad shoulder or not, he was rough on Sunday night. Bears defense, though, give them the credit. Top 3, mentioned this on NFL Network this week. 3 cornerbacks in the top 20 in coverage grade. That's to this point. Now, Bryce Callahan's out.
One of whom just went down.
That's one of them.
Problem.
But Prince Amukamara and Fuller, Kyle Fuller. Gotta have to think every single time before I say his name.
Yeah.
Stupid Fuller brothers. But that's going to be a good matchup. These teams haven't played since week 1. Remember, Aaron Rodgers got hurt and then made that very impressive comeback where Fuller did drop what would have been a game-ending interception. By the way, Rodgers had one of his worst games passing the ball.
I was going to say, kind of ironic, right? You get rid of the problem. Mike McCarthy's gone. Aaron Rodgers is going to be great again. We win. Rodgers didn't play very well.
But his QBR was the best he's ever had.
Of course it was.
He had the best QBR of his season and one of his worst PFF grades because Deion Jones dropped interceptions.
Damn it, Deion.
So Aaron Rodgers still sitting there with 1 interception as we head into Week 15, though he should have had at least 3 or 4 over
these last weeks. It's like Deion is just out to screw me this past few weeks. Didn't come back when he was supposed to, and then does come back and dropped interceptions all over the shop.
Either way, I'm taking Green Bay in this one.
What am I doing?
Everybody else is taking Chicago.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I think Chicago's going through this tough run of,
this rapid fire thing hasn't worked that well.
It's pretty much your fault.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not I'm not apportioning blame. I'm just saying it's
Tennessee
fallen.
Titans at the New York Giants.
Okay.
What do you got? Saquon.
Yeah.
He's playing really well.
He is. He's playing. So people keep kind of trying to use...
Keep it tight, but make the point.
People keep trying to say gotcha with the Saquon Barkley thing because PFF was not... We didn't like the pick at number 2.
Not just us. A lot of people didn't.
Whatever. But this is our podcast, Steve, so I'm focusing on us, if that's okay with you.
Selfish.
And the point is, yeah, he's playing fantastically, and it doesn't matter because if you don't have the quarterback, you're not going to be in contention, and that's all that matters, right? He cannot play well enough for it to be the right decision to take him over a quarterback at number 2. And the logic that would you not rather have Saquon Barkley at 2, like a generational running back talent, and then pick a quarterback this draft, or pick a quarterback last draft and take whatever you're left with in the middle of the first round? The answer is no. You would not rather that because, one, you have no idea what situation you're going to be in this draft. Let's say Saquon was that good and he propels you to 10 wins and you're picking at the ass end of the first round and there's nobody available for you to take a quarterback. That's bad. Now you don't have a quarterback and you're screwed again. Alternatively, let's say exactly what's happened has happened. He's fantastic. You're going to end up somewhere in the middle range. Now you have to go find a quarterback. And they don't appear to be that great this year. Nope. And you just passed up a bunch that did look pretty good. Now, okay, they're struggling, but we've talked about their terrible quarterback situations. You could have had the pick of the quarterbacks outside of Baker Mayfield in the last draft. And if you really wanted the quarterback, if you decided that the one guy capable of being a franchise quarterback was Baker Mayfield, you could have gone to number 1 and taken him. Like, it's not like you were locked in to number 2.
Ooh, that would have been a good move.
Right. I'm just saying, Saquon Barkley is a great running back. He's shown the incredible talent. He has tidied up a lot of his tendency to want to bounce it outside and not take the hard yards in the middle. He's done really impressively this season. Like, that's the thing. That's the story of his season, honestly. We knew this guy was a spectacular talent, but he's gotten a lot better at just taking the ugly yards as opposed to going, no, I want to bounce this outside for 15 and losing 5. He's gotten a lot better at that. And it still doesn't matter. It's still the wrong call to take him at 2.
All right. What are you taking this week?
Titans.
Titans. I'm taking the Giants. Got them still rolling. My under win bet is in jeopardy, though, over these last few weeks.
Along with your other bets.
Yeah,
having said that, the next game, can we go the next game? Just
Raiders at Bengals.
Right. Yeah.
Wait, how many wins do I need for the Raiders? This could be one of them.
None of us can remember, but I think it's 6.
You
need them to win out, right?
If they get to 5,
you need them to win out, and including last week.
To play the Chiefs one time.
Whatever.
I don't care about my bet anymore.
You need them to win out, right? Including last week, which was the game they shouldn't have won.
No, they
beat the Steelers. Now they get to face the Jeff Driscolls, and they're going to win that one, right?
They're going to win this one.
So the Raiders are going to go on a little run just to make you think that you're going to save lunch, and it's not going to happen.
We're all taking Oakland. Derek Carr over the last 2 weeks, the top-graded PFF quarterback. He was making some pretty special throws against Pittsburgh.
He's quietly gotten back on track.
Yes. Hasn't thrown an interception since week 5. Has 8 on the season. He had 8 through the first 5 weeks. Has not thrown one since week 5. I know it's, you've got some turnover-worthy plays in there as well, but he's throwing the ball much better these last couple weeks, a little bit more aggressive down the field. Derek Carr continues to be a bit of an enigma because he does balance back and forth between like crazy boneheaded decisions, super conservative, and then showing off just some of the just ridiculous throws that he is capable of making.
Yeah, I mean, so when he got kind of broken, right? He was playing fantastically, got that broken ankle.
You can't be broken.
When their entire season went almost disappeared, essentially. Or did disappear. And then the point was he's never looked the same guy since. And he's always looked pretty rough. He's made some horrible decisions when he was under pressure, but even when pressure wasn't really there, you just reach this pressure. You reach this point where he panics and just throws the ball away or does something weird in the pocket. But again, not only has he been playing better the last few weeks, that has disappeared. So the last 3 weeks his passer rating under pressure is 111. His PFF grade under pressure is 67.9, which is it's a high figure for being under pressure. It's not a high figure for a general, but it's top 10, right? So it's right behind Phillip Rivers and right ahead of Aaron Rodgers. He is, over the past few weeks, started to look like the guy that was the next sort of impressive young quarterback before he broke his ankle. Yeah, like that's kind of one of the stories of this season. If the Raiders actually get Derek Carr back on track, that franchise is in a lot better position than we thought they were.
There's still a chance that they move on from him just because of the money and because they've got all those picks.
Right.
But so that's going to be an off-season story because it did look like early in the season, John Gruden just looked like he was fed up early on. But Gruden's getting rid of everybody. So we get an off-season discussion on that one.
But alternatively, if you decide he is back on track, now you have all these picks to build a team around him.
Oh, I agree. I think something to keep an eye on down the stretch here with Carr. We're all taking Oakland except for Gordon, taking the Bengals and the Fighting Driscolls. Detroit Lions at the Buffalo Bills. The full Josh Allen experience the last couple of weeks here, Sam. Going from team of the week quarterback to bad again.
Yeah.
Despite rushing for 101 yards. I mean, he's just all over the place right now. Drop my pen.
Nice.
He's just all over the place right now.
Yeah.
He's much like Lamar, pretty much what we expected, minus how much he's done on the ground.
Right.
He's got the most rushing yards of any quarterback right now.
He's a little bit like Cam Newton in terms of when I look at a guy like that in college, nicely done. You look at him and you say, there's no way that translates to the next level where the athletes are bigger, stronger, faster. Those guys don't. Anyone getting by on athletic talent in college is not really going to get it done at the next level because it's harder. That's true to a point. There is apparently a point of athlete where you're so freaky that you can still get that done. Now, I think I definitely made that mistake with Cam Newton because you look at him now. I mean, I can't remember who it was. Chased him out of bounds last week. A defensive end, and they're walking back onto the field. Cam Newton is bigger than that guy.
He's a monster.
And he's definitely faster and more athletic. He's huge. And Josh Allen is kind of the same, right? You see this guy running around, you're thinking, yeah, well, of course you can do that at Wyoming against, Mountain West teams and whatever, but that's not going to happen in the NFL where you're going up against high-end first tier 99th percentile athletes. Turns out he's still kind of freaky enough to be able to do that, to be able to hurdle Anthony Barr, to be able to do all the crazy things, make Kiko Alonso look ridiculous. He's still that level of freaky. Now the question is he a good enough quarterback for it to matter? He's still a good enough athlete to be able to kind of do what he did at Wyoming, which is flash talent and make enough plays to look intriguing. But can he be a good enough quarterback?
So we talked about it earlier, though. The Jets, Cardinals, and Bills.
Right.
Bottom three situations when it comes to playmakers and offensive lines combined. Yes. The fact that Allen has made the Bills' offense competitive. Mm-hmm. Now, it's either Nathan Peterman is literally the worst quarterback that's ever played, and statistically he is.
Yes.
The worst quarterback that's ever played.
Uh-huh.
So maybe it's tough to gauge it against him. But, Matt Barkley made the Bills look pretty good for a week. So maybe it's just Peterman and Derek Anderson.
Yeah.
Right? That's making... But Josh Allen's made them look pretty reasonable the last couple of weeks. And when you do start building around him and Rosen and Darnold, I think all these guys get a little bit better. And so maybe the stuff that Allen's doing with his legs is just this, extra blessing in disguise, knowing that he'll probably be able to make a few more throws as things get a little bit easier for him.
But that's kind of the thing, right, is that you've got this mitigating factor, the fact that the offense generally is pretty bad around him. So, of course, he's going to take off and have to scramble and do all this stuff himself. But he did that, and you had the same excuse in college as well, but at this point it is a trend.
Yeah, it's a style thing,
right.
Yeah.
And so the question becomes, let's say you took him right now and put him in the best quarterback situation in the NFL, how much would it change? How much would he still be doing that because that's just in his nature? That's what he does. And how much of it is a product of the crap around him? Now, I don't think we know the answer to that question. I don't know.
I'm not too worried about how often he's doing it. I'm just saying, when he actually passes the ball with better receivers, things will get a little bit better.
Right, but that's also the big part of the improvement that needs to happen, right? Is that he's offsetting a lot of the bad quarterback play by doing special athlete things.
He's last in adjusted completion percentage and all that stuff.
So how much better of a quarterback can he become and remain a special athlete?
Bigger issue to keep an eye on, I think. I'm taking Buffalo because they've done a good job from a pass coverage standpoint. Matthew Stafford is playing like Alex Smith. He averaged 4.4 yards per attempt last week. His average depth of completion is one of the lowest in the NFL, if not the lowest. I mean, the Detroit passing game, especially since Golden Tate has left, has been a disaster. I'm taking Buffalo because of that.
Do you know how many yards Tre'Davious White has given up this year?
30. That's more than that.
It is more than
150.
236 all season long. Over 800 snaps. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. Tre'Davious is good.
Yeah.
He's a very good player. I'm taking Buffalo, as are you.
Yeah.
A few other Detroits in there. Miami Dolphins at the Minnesota Vikings. We've got a full video on the YouTube channel I want to point people to where we discuss Kirk Cousins. You get to use your fun analogy. We're going to save it for the video.
It's a great analogy.
Go check it out on the video. Here's what Kirk Cousins is. Sam breaks it down in the video on the YouTube channel that says what's wrong with Kirk Cousins. And we had a very healthy discussion. Ultimately, though, Kirk Cousins is what we expected. And because he is what we expected, this feels like a great game at home against a Miami pass defense that he will have a good game against them.
Yeah. It's the Vikings are a fascinating team right now because they're essentially in crisis mode, but they're still in pole position for the last wild card spot, which is not your average, not your typical situation. Usually, the teams hitting panic buttons and firing people are, things are spiraling.
Well, look at Dallas. Like Dallas a couple weeks ago, they were going to blow the whole thing up, and they're leading the NFC East by a wide margin now.
Right, but they didn't. Usually, the teams that do blow everything up, are in real trouble. But so the Vikings identified their scapegoat. They kicked out the offensive coordinator. Everybody's blaming Kirk Cousins because he's on $84 million over the next 3 years. They want to establish the run more because Mike Zimmer's offensive ethos is mired in 1987. But they're best when they pass the ball.
You've got me thinking.
Yeah?
We've got.
Do we have time for that?
We have a high-priced, potentially overpaid quarterback. We have an offensive coordinator change.
Uh-huh.
We have a quarterback who's a roller coaster every single week. And we have a defense that's capable of really high-level play.
Is it, though?
It's capable of. Okay. I didn't say they do it. They're capable of. 2012 Ravens. There you go. Joe Flacco.
Okay.
Joe Flacco's having a terrible season.
Uh-huh.
They fire the offensive coordinator, completely change everything. He goes on his little run. Maybe Kirk Cousins, they sneak into the playoffs. He's ready for his playoff run.
Maybe. Their biggest problem, though, which I've maintained all this time, is that their offensive line is a disaster.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
And Kirk
well,
Cousins.
The Ravens O-line got better down the stretch, too.
It got better, and this may get better as well. But it's
find Bryant McKinney.
It's a disaster right now. It is terrible. And people keep saying, the Case Keenum had the same line last year, and look at him, 13-3. One, he didn't. It's not the same line. Their best player, Joe Burger, retired. It is 3 different starters.
By week 14, they'd already given up more pressures than they had last year.
Right. And but whatever. There's 3 different starters, I think, right now, or maybe even 4 from that line a year ago. It is not the same offensive line. So that argument is immediately ridiculous. 2, that offensive line was what cost them at the end. Right? Against the Saints, they should have lost. The line was getting killed. Cam Jordan was destroying that line at the end. Almost got home on the miracle play. Plus, they required a play literally dubbed a miracle to win that game. Now, if they didn't, and they just crapped out of the playoffs in their first game, would we be using that as a positive? No. So what actually happened is...
maybe, because they went 13-3 with Case Keenum. We're just, regular season-wise,
we
Keenum's been better.
We wouldn't be using that. We wouldn't be saying it, right? This team was in the playoffs, and it was 1 game away, Steve. 1 game. Really, it wasn't, though. It was
the 1 game away thing. Yeah. Maybe not.
So anyway, the offensive line absolutely came back to kill them in the postseason last year. And this year, it's just been all season long. They've given up 190 pressures. That's the most in the league by 15. Even on a per-snap basis, it's the 3rd most. The line is terrible. The line is also why you can't just establish the run because you're the 3rd worst in yards before contact. You can't open up the holes to establish the run. You need to embrace what you're good at, which is I have 2 of the top 10 receivers in the NFL. I have a quarterback that's capable of big-time throws. Air it out, boys.
Got to keep chucking it.
The end.
Just chuck it off play action, though.
Yeah.
Off an unestablished run. That's the way to do it. We're all taking Minnesota in this game. Miami is still very much in the AFC playoff picture at 7-6.
Yeah.
But they're not a very good team.
28th in overall PFF grade.
Yeah. So I think something's got to give there. This looks like a tough matchup for Miami, but they continue to exceed expectations. So we'll see what happens. Washington Redskins at the Jacksonville Jaguars. We all have the Jags. I mean, the Jags beat the Colts 6-0. This game might be 9-0.
9-0?
Yeah.
Yeah. I had the mistaken viewpoint that the Redskins could actually put together a game, even with Mark Sanchez. Turns out that was way wrong. Way wrong.
He wasn't as bad as the stats showed, but it wasn't nearly as good as Josh Johnson.
But everybody else was, which is
the team was bad.
The issue.
It was very bad.
Yeah. I mean, the Redskins, they've been probably hampered more than any other team by injury. Like when you lose 2 quarterbacks, you're boned. Doesn't matter what happens. Like you're down to your 3rd string, you're screwed. But they've also had offensive line injuries. They've had injuries everywhere else. They've just been really banged up in the wrong places. And obviously that's a problem. Coming up against the Jacksonville defense, that's going to be a real issue.
Cody Kessler.
Yeah.
Cody Kessler.
The best idiot for the idiot-proof offense.
Seattle Seahawks at the San Francisco 49ers. Seahawks are rolling. They look like they're going to make the playoffs, and they should win this one.
Right, absolutely. Although, Nick Mullins will give them, it's at home. Nick Mullins, George Kittle.
Russell Wilson had a pretty bad game the other night, and the worst interception of the season, I think.
49ers are legitimately dangerous at home. Like, they've got talent, and Nick Mullins is not terrible.
Better game than you think?
I think so, yeah. I think this might actually end up halfway close.
All right. Philadelphia Eagles at the Los Angeles Rams. We're all taking the Rams. Wentz is out.
Yeah.
Check out our Rams analysis also on the YouTube channel. Some really good in-depth stuff on Jared Goff and what's happened to the last couple of weeks. I expect the Rams pass game to bounce back, though. That's the biggest key here. It's not the run game here. Teams are playing the pass. I think they can bounce back against this Eagles coverage unit that's ranked 26th in PFF grades.
Right. The stuff that the Rams do on offense is essentially designed to confuse defenses, and that's defenses that know what they're doing. The Eagles have guys in the secondary that have no idea what they're doing. And when you start showing them stacked bunch formations with various motions, they're it's a train wreck waiting to happen.
Yeah. The Schwartz defenses, too, they've had trouble in the past at times, like matching up with that type of stuff. So it should be a good matchup for the Rams to bounce back offensively. And then Monday Night Football, we're all taking the Saints over the Carolina Panthers. Any reason for concern over the last couple of weeks? Drew Brees struggled against the Dallas Cowboys, and then at Tampa Bay, I kind of predicted the Tampa Bay game last week that it was going to be a little tougher than you expect, and then they pulled away. But Brees in the pass offense hasn't been nearly as good the last 2 weeks for the Saints.
No, it hasn't. I don't know that's a massive reason for concern because all the good things are still there, right? It's not like anything disappeared. They lost X, and that's why they're struggling. It's all the good is still there. Drew Brees is still their quarterback. They've still got Michael Thomas. The offensive line is still good. There's no reason they should struggle long term, is what I'm saying. Yeah. So therefore, they should bounce back at some point.
Saints defense playing really well right now too.
Right.
So they lost to Dallas, but gave up only 13. Played well against Tampa Bay and Jameis last week. 2 road games. Little tough little road stretch,
and that's
for the Saints.
Like, that's kind of the thing. We started this season. It's like coming out of last season, we expected the Saints defense or the Saints period to be really good because their defense had been so good, and the offense will obviously be good. But the defense wasn't to start this year, particularly in coverage. Marshawn Lattimore didn't play anything like the way he's played last season. The defense has really started to kick on as the season's worn on. In particular, Sheldon Rankins has been playing out of his mind. Like if you look at his game-by-game grades, they just fire up into good as the season goes on, and elite the past few weeks. Like his pressure rate over the past few weeks has gone through the roof. And like Cameron Jordan is an elite defender. When you give him one more guy that can dominate, that defense becomes a completely different unit immediately.
Saints they control their own destiny again because of the Rams' loss last week.
Yep.
Control their own destiny to become the number 1 seed. We've talked about how important that is. So Saints can't screw up. Rams can't screw up. That's the thing to watch in the NFC.
Yep.
Down the stretch here. Do you want to get back to what grinds our gears? Can you do this in a minute?
What is it?
You've been talking about this for a couple of weeks. The
teabagging thing? We didn't do that? All right.
Did we do it?
I don't know.
I don't think we did it.
All right, fine.
Everybody grinds your gears?
Everybody is losing their mind because Quentin Nelson, the rookie guard from Indianapolis, has a habit of teabagging people when he takes them to the ground, right? For anyone that doesn't know what that is, you basically grind your groin in the face of the guy you just took to the floor, right? As you get up, you kind of crawl over him, basically really irritate the crap out of him when you do that.
Yeah,
now, offensive linemen,
what grinds your gears about that?
Offensive line people love it. They're like, oh, look at that. It's amazing. Nasty. It's a fantastic thing, right?
Bring in the nasty.
If that was any other position, you would be calling that guy the dirtiest player in football. Can you imagine if every time Ndamukong Suh tackled somebody, he teabagged him on the way up? People would be losing their minds at how bad that is.
What if Odell Beckham did it?
Anybody other than an offensive line, you would be saying that guy is an asshole. But because it's an offensive lineman, we celebrate that as a concept. If you're an asshole, it's a great thing for an offensive line. We like those guys to be nasty, so it's great. So that just
grinds your gears.
The double standard, right? It's either acceptable to teabag a guy after you've taken him to the floor, or it's not. It can't be acceptable because he's an offensive lineman, but not because he's a defensive lineman. That's all I'm saying.
All right, I'm with you.
The end.
I'm going to tell the offensive lineman that you're upset at teabagging.
You do that.
All right, guys, that's it. Week 15. I told you what happened on Thursday Night Football, and now we're looking forward to the rest of the action, of course. You guys can keep up with all the action over at ProFootballFocus.com. PFF Elite Package. Go and check it out with all your premium stats. Good luck if you guys are in your fantasy playoffs. It's usually semifinal week. What are you making faces at? I'm in the semifinals. I got a bye, which is the best way to do it, by the way. If you're so good in the regular season, you get a bye. You don't have to worry about week. Where are you going? I'm just giving you some fantasy football advice. This is the third straight week you have left early. It's unacceptable. Good luck if you guys are in your fantasy playoffs. I know we've got a lot of listeners that do play fantasy football. Sam's out. I'm out. We'll talk to you guys on Monday with our Week 15 recap.